We are up to Lamed Gimel Amid Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. I just want to finish up this last sugya. We quoted a brisa, and we were going through the brisa, in detail. The last thing we talked about is that if you burn someone's shtar, you're not going to be taken to court. You might be chayav b'din shamayim. The reason being is because you were goyre mehezek. You did not actually listen. If there's 2 people that owe each other money, and there's a document, and you burn the document, you didn't ruin the loan. You just made it that it's an oral loan and not written loan. So what you did is you ruined the lien. But okay, that's what we talked about. And we talked about yesterday is that according to Rav Akiva, when a damage happens with a tam, the victim automatically acquires half of the acquires the value in the animal itself. According to Shmuel, no, it's a debt like any other debt, but there's a lien on the cow. Okay. Now we said in the brisa, just to finish up the sugya, and we'll go to a new sugya. The brisa said, "Kadmu bali chayvis v'hegbiu bein chav at shlei hizik bein hizik at shlei chav loy asa b'loy klum lefi she'ein mishalem elam migufay." The halacha was like this. Let's say my animal damaged Gavin's animal, so now there's a lien, and whatever the value is, it doesn't matter the values. There's a lien on my animal for Gavin, so he can now take it. Okay, I mean, even if I don't have any money, he could take the animal. It says the brisa. Let's say I owe other people money. I owe Menashe money because I lent him money, whatever it is, and I made a lien on the cow. I said I lent you money, and I stipulated apoteki. I stipulated there should be a lien on this cow. The halacha is he cannot take the cow. Gavin gets it first rights. Whether the hezek happened before the loan, whether the loan happened before the hezek, it's irrelevant. The cow is Gavin's. Oh my God.
The cow has liens on it already. Right? There's liens on the cow.
I have fear for the rest of our time. The point is, my cow hurts Gavin's cow, so there's a lien on my cow to pay him. I also happen to owe money to Menashe, and I made a lien when I gave him when I borrowed the money from Menashe. It doesn't matter whether it came first. It doesn't matter whether it didn't come first. The cow is Gavin's. So the Gemara wants to analyze this. The Gemara says, I think it was my father's point. I understand if the damage happened before the loan, I get it. His lien came first. But if I lent the money before the damage, that means Menashe's lien came before the damage. So Bal Chayv Kadim, why is it that it automatically goes to the damage to the victim? It should be that whoever had the lien first. Shouldn't it just be whoever has first lien wins? Secondly, more than this, the brisa indicates that not only is it that the one who got damaged gets the cow, and not the person who I owe the money, regardless of when the loan takes place. If he tried to take it, we would go into your property and undo what you did. The problem is that's generally not the rule either. Let's say I have a property and I owe 2 people money, and there's a lien first by you, then by you. So who gets it first? The first person who has the lien. The halacha is generally, if the second guy cuts the line and takes it, he shouldn't have done that, but we're not going to undo it because at the end of the day, he still owed money. So the question is over here, not only are we saying that it doesn't matter when the loan takes place, the cow belongs to the victim, but more than that, if the other guy took it, no good. Where is that coming from in halacha? The Gemara says, "Ba'afilu hizik ad shleichav bal choiv kadim shmami na." You should learn from here. Bal choiv mu'ucher shekadim megava ma shegava legava. You should learn from here that if the second guy comes and tries to take the lien, takes the item that's under the lien of the property, it doesn't work. Now that's not generally the rules of halva. Perhaps, but this is all in Rabbi Shmuel. They were trying to figure out how does Rabbi Shmuel explain this.
So anybody, if he's not in order, he can jump the line.
Listen, Bidi Evid, we're not going to make him undo it because at the end of the day, he still owed money.
Yeah, but then you have no order.
Okay, I'm not saying you're supposed to do this, but so we're going to make him undo it? Why? Give it back the money. Why? He owes me money. Your lien was second in line. Okay, fine. Okay, whatever. So the Gemara says, Lo'ilam. Really, in general, if someone were to cut the line by the lien, it would work. Why is this case different? In other words, why in this case does it automatically go to the victim as opposed to the person that owed the money? Vishani Hasam, The Amarle, ilu gabach havale minoch havagavale, daitur de iskin mine mishtalmana. The answer is, this case is a little bit different than any other lien. Why? Over here, it's not just a lien. When the victim got hurt by this cow is now the source of his income. Meaning, let's say, in my case, my cow hurts Gavin's cow, right? So there's a lien on the property. He gets it. Even if I owed you money and I made the cow the lien before, it doesn't matter. Gavin automatically gets it. Why? Because Gavin can say to you, if the cow was in your property, would I get it? Yeah. If the cow was owned by you, would I get it? This is not a regular case of a lien. The animal itself, because it was the source of the damage, the Torah says you should get that cow. That supersedes other things. Meaning, this is not working in the general rules of loans and liens. The Torah says that we said, why is there a lien on the property on this cow? Generally, there's no liens on cows. The answer is the Torah says, according to Rabbi Shmuel, the Torah says ki'ilu apoteki, meaning the Torah is saying that when this animal hits, it's not that it's yours, but you should get this cow as payment. Not that it's yours, but this cow is a lien for you. Because the Torah does that, and it's not just random money the guy chooses, it's sort of as like a payment for the cow's attack. It's more personal, so to speak. And therefore, this rule breaks the other rules. Therefore, even if I owed Menashe money first, and I made this cow into a lien, you'll get it. Why? Because when this animal attacks, the Torah's way of saying is, we want you to have that cow. Not that it's yours, but it's more of a personal. The Torah is saying this cow has some connection to you, and you should collect from this cow. It doesn't matter, and the beauty is, it doesn't matter who. It's not like it's made by the owner. It's an automatic lien. It doesn't matter who owns it. If I own the cow, it would be the same way, and if I gave it to you, it would be the same way. Because of that, you see, it's more of a personal thing to him than just a random, arbitrary decision. It's hard to understand the lumdis, but that's the
first person having a lien on the cow.
I made it. I stipulated.
It works.
It works according to this opinion. It does work, but the point is, your lien was mandated by God because of it's more of a personal attack by the cow, and because it's more personal, so to speak, the Torah says you're going to go first. That's the point. Meaning, basically, when you have a lien that's made by Hashem because of the animal's actions itself, that lien will break other liens. That's the point.
That discourages loans. We normally say, we always come down like,
Yep.
we want to continue people lending.
This is not a common occurrence. Okay.
Even controversial, the first case, without a second lease, then he needs to give him that animal, not just money for the animal.
No, he doesn't have to give him that animal, according to Rabbi Shmuel. He has to give him cash. He has to give him cash, but that animal's a lien on the property, meaning if he doesn't have the money, that animal then is collected or sold. A lien doesn't mean you get the thing. It just means that it's a failsafe. If I don't have cash, that thing is miyuchad for me. Okay, Taner Rabbanan. Let's go through. Let's begin the daf. Taner Rabbanan. Okay, the Gemara says like this: Shar shaveh masayim. If you have an ox worth 200 zuz, shenogach shar shaveh masayim, and it gores an ox worth 200 zuz. Okay, so far so good. B'chakal boy b'chamishim zuz, and it did damage of 50 zuz. So 200 against 200, and now the item is worth 150. So I did $50 worth of damage. I pay half of that, which is $25. But here's the deal. There's 4 cases in this price. Let's go to case number 1. By the time after the damage happened, between the damage happening, again, I did $50 worth of damage. Between the damage happening and the time it goes to court, the price of cattle has skyrocketed, and the animal is no longer worth 150. It's worth 500. It shot up. So the question is, why do I have to pay it all? Like they go to court and they're like, well, your animal inflicted damage. I'm like, I don't see what damage. This animal's worth way more. Says the Gemara, but had your animal not damaged, instead of it going up to $400, it would have gone up to $800. Meaning, it definitely is way past the original value, but because of your damage, it's not as valuable as it could have been. You still have to pay $25. Meaning, the Bryce, according to this two pshat in Rashi, I go with the first pshat in Rashi. What this Bryce is telling you is the fact that the animal went up in value after the damage is irrelevant to you. You'll say, why should I pay? Again, I'm paying, my animal hurt your animal, $50 for the damage. But by the time we come to court, your animal's worth double what it was. The answer is, because if not for your damage, it would have been worth triple. So you still did a hezek. At the end of the day, you did a hezek, and you have to pay for it. It doesn't matter. The fact that the market value went up afterwards is irrelevant.
Say you should owe 200.
Huh? Oh, and Rashi's second chiddush is that you don't have to pay the amount that it would. But Rashi says for that's a davar pasha, because then if I burn down your house, I don't have to pay for the mansion you could have built. Like that's too much. But the point is, I still have to pay for the damages, even if the animal went up in value. So far, so good. Meaning you go by the value at the time of damage. Second halacha, kochash kishasa bedin. Let's say the animal, again, I did the damage. It was starting at 200. Now it's worth 150. By the time it goes to court, it's worth $50. You know what? You have to pay $150. Now that's the opposite of what we just got finished saying. We just got finished saying that you go by the time of the damage. Now we're saying you go by the time of Bezdin. So the Gemara is going to explain. I mean, it goes down in value. You have to compensate more. So that's a little strange. Why?
How is it statistic? How do you compensate more?
What do you mean? I damaged it, $200 animal, hit the other animal, made it $150. But by the time it went to court, it was no longer $150, it was $50. So you have to pay the half of $150. You have to pay $75. But why? I thought you stopped by. So the Gemara is going to explain the cases that the deterioration continued was due to your attack. Meaning, sometimes an animal, there's the initial, depreciation, and then because the animal is now weak and sick, it's deteriorating more. You still have to compensate because that's considered all one long hezek. Okay, that's also pretty pasha. Now here's the interesting part. That was all the victim went down or went up in value. Now let's talk about the aggressor going up or down. Now you say, well, why would that matter? Oh, no, so I'll tell you, it's fascinating. Okay. Oh, so that's very good. I didn't think of this. That's very good. Rav Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel had a very interesting way to figure out how you perceive the damage yesterday. According to Rabbi Shmuel, it's a damage and a check, right? It doesn't matter the value of the aggressive animal, the attacker. It's irrelevant. I did $50 worth of damage. I write a check $50. There might be a lien, but it doesn't matter. According to Rav Akiva, if you remember, let's say my animal's worth $200, and it inflicts $200 worth of damage. So I have to pay $100. What did we say? According to Rav Akiva, you get half my animal. Do you know what that means, though? That means I don't just owe you $100. I owe you $100 and half my animal. They happen to be the same value. What if my animal goes up in value? So now I don't owe you $100. Let's say my animal went up from $200 to $10,000. Conceptually, I should pay you $5,000. Although I only did $100 worth of damage, but according to Rav Akiva, you acquired 50% of my animal. Well, if my animal goes up, or if my animal goes down,
You require the hezek value in that animal.
but at the time you become shutfin, and according to Rav Akiva, that means that you get 50% of my animal. So again, that's one way to look at it. But the Gemara, that's why I told you it's a big chiddush. According to Rav Akiva, you don't just get the value of conceptually. Again, the Gemara is going to analyze this, but conceptually, the thought might be that you don't just get $100 worth of damage. You got 50% of my animal. Now, if my animal went down in value, then you get less. If my animal went up, then conceptually you got more. It's a little bit like a weird gamble. So let's see it inside. Yeah, 100%. So that's why it was throwing me. Shavach mazik, let's say the aggressive animal went up in value. Noisin likashas nezek. It's irrelevant. Now that kind of sounds like Rabbi Shmuel. Meaning, my animal, again, $200, $100, I owe you $100 because of the damage. My animal's worth $200. So according to Rav Akiva, you got 50% of my animal. My animal then went up 10x. The Gemara says you still pay $100. That kind of sounds like Rabbi Shmuel, because again, according to Rabbi Shmuel, you don't get any percentage of my animal. You just get a check. But then what does the Brisa say? Kochash, but if it went down in value, you get less money. Meaning, this end of the Brisa follows Rav Akiva. According to Rav Akiva, if my animal worth $200 did $200 worth of damage in your animal, so it owes you $100. I don't owe you $100. You get 50% of my animal. Now, 50% of my animal happens to be valued at $100. But then, after the damage, my animal's market value tanked, and my animal's no longer worth $200. It's worth $20. You know what? You get $5. That's you get $10. Because you get half of my animal. That's what Rav Akiva is saying. It's a tremendous chiddush, but that's how Rav Akiva looks at it. Because again, according to Rav Akiva, the whole point is l'shitasei. It's not money owed. You are a shutif in my animal. So part of shutifus is a risk, right? Meaning, according to Rav Akiva, that's the whole point. We said yesterday that according to Rav Akiva, I, the victim, can now be makdish the animal because I own half of it. Well, so says Rav Akiva, well, if you want to own half, okay. Part of owning half is depreciation of value. So according to Rabbi Akiva, if the animal's value tanks, I don't give you the $100 that I damaged. I give you 50% of the animal. And if 50% of the animal is now $10, well, then you're getting $10. That's Rabbi Akiva Shita. Now, what's strange about this brisa is that it said if it went up in value, it doesn't matter. You just give him the hezek. But if it went down in value, then it's Rabbi Akiva's percentages. So why is it that the third case of the brisa, where it went up in value, it's irrelevant? You just give them the $100. But when it's down in value, then all of a sudden it fluctuates. According to Rav Akiva, it should always fluctuate. You understand? I mean, according to Rav Akiva, it shouldn't make a difference whether the animal goes up or it goes down. You're going to give the fluctuated price. You're not going to give the hezek. You're going to give the percentage that my animal has, the percentage of ownership that you have in my animal based on the hezek at the time of the damage. So the question is, when it goes up, again, the case is very simple. $200 animal did $100 worth of damage. So you're owed $100. According to Rav Akiva, you don't write a check. You now own 50% of my animal. So says the brisa, if it went down in value, I don't have to pay you $100. I have to pay you 50% of the value of my animal. That could be $10. But the brisa says if it goes up in value, then you only get $100. Why? It should be the same thing. If it went 10x up, I made 10x. So says the Gemara, Amar Mar, Shavach Mazik Noisin Kashas Nezek. Money Rabbi Shmali, when it goes up in damage, up in value, we don't care about that. We just say $100 straight up. The Hezek, because that follows Rabbi Shmal, that you don't have any shutzvus in the cow. So far, so good. Then the exact next case is Karkash Kashas Hamad Bedin, that if it went down in value, then it actually fluctuates. Then also the Rav Akiva, Damar Shutfininu. So Reisha very small, say for Rav Akiva, well, basically, what's the difference? If it goes down, then you say you don't give $100, you give the percentage of the animal based on the time of the hezek. But if it goes up, $100. What's the difference? So the Gemara says, very simple. Kula Rav Akiva. Really, the entire brisa follows Rav Akiva. That again, you don't give the value of the hezek. The value of the hezek gives you a percentage in the cow at the time of the damage. Then, at the time of the Shadas Mother Bedin, you figure out the animal's value and you get half of it, or you get the percentage of it. So how come? So when it goes down, it makes sense. It goes down, you lost out. But if it goes up, why don't I make money? The answer is kishapitmai. The case is, again, let's go very simple case. My animal, $200, damages Gavin's animal, $200 worth of damage. I owe him $100, but according to Rav Akiva, I don't write him a check of $100. He gets 50% of my animal. So if it went down in value, sorry, I'm not paying you $100. You're getting 50% of the animal. If that's $5, that's $5. But let's say it went skyrocketed 10x, it went up 10 times. Says the brisa, I just give you $100. Why? I don't understand. It should be the same thing. The answer is the case is, why did it go up 10x? It wasn't just because the market went up 10x. It's because I fed it. And I gave it wine, and I massaged it. I put in the time. The reason why you don't get 10x is because I'm getting reimbursed for the sort of the effort that I did. So if it would have just gone up 10x just based on pure market value, you would get it. The cases where the price that went up was directly due to my actions. Therefore, you don't get it. That's the Gemara says.
What if the guy starves the bit in the animal?
Oh, so then, but you're right. Then, well, I don't know if you hurt the animal. I don't know. It's a good point. I don't know.
Is it the same? Is Kesef the same because of inflation? Like if someone owes
No.
money, you get plus interest plus according to.
No, I don't think so.
Because it does fluctuate.
No, it fluctuates, but I don't know. I don't know if this is applicable to other cases. I'm not sure. So the Gemara says, so you're telling me the case where it went up in value, the reason why you don't get it is because it didn't go up just because of market value, it went up directly due to his actions. So let me ask you a question. In the first part of the brisa, where instead of the damager going up or going down, the victim went up or down, what was the chiddush of the first case? The chiddush of the first case, my animal's $200, it did $50 worth of damage, and then it skyrocketed to 10x, I still have to pay $50. Right, that was the point of the first case. Again, not the damager going up or down, the victim. So I did $50 worth of damage, and by the time I get to court, the market value is 10 times X. What's the halacha? You still have to pay. You still did damage. Now, if you're telling me the reason why it went up or down was directly due to the owner's actions, that means the first case, it didn't just go up 10X by the market. The owner made it go up 10x. So, and what's the chiddush? I still have to pay. Yeah, you have to pay. Yeah, I mean, well, I don't understand. If you're telling me the case is that the owner's actions, it wasn't just market value, the owner's actions. See, what's the chiddush of the first case? The chiddush of the first case is I did $50 worth of damage, but by the time it comes to Bezdin, the animal is worth 10x, and the chiddush is I still have to pay. Well, how did it go up 10x? Because the owner was a good owner and fed it and took care of it and rehabilitated it. So now that's a chiddush to me. It doesn't make it. Meaning, if you're telling me it's a bigger chiddush in the first case, if the market just naturally went up. But if you're telling me now that what caused it to go up or down was due to the owner's interactions, the first case is not as much of a chiddush. So the Gemara is just going to basically say the first part of the brisa could either be going up because of the owner's actions or because of the market value. The end of the brisa, it had to be where it went up specifically due to the owner's actions. Because if it went up due to the market value, Rav Akiva would actually say you get a percentage of it. The Gemara says, "Isha pitmu emareisha shavach va'amid al arba me'ezuz noisli shasa nezek isha pitmu tzrich lemeimar Rav Papa reisha mashkechas la beim pitma petume bein deshavcha memela." The first part of the brisa could be explained whether it went up due to the owner's actions or whether it went up on a market value. It's the chiddush of the first part is that you still have to pay regardless because you still did a damage. But the end of the brisa has to be where the animal's owner caused the owner of the damager caused it to go up in value. Because if not, it wouldn't make any sense. Now, one last point before we go to a new topic. We said in the second case of the brisa, my animal did $50 worth of damage. And then by the time it goes to court, the animal is now worth $100 less. So $200 animal, I hit it, the animal hit it, $150. But by the time it goes to court, it's worth $50. I have to pay for $150 worth of damage. But why? I thought you just go by the. So I said the cases where it kept on going down because of that original hit, that original clap. So the Gemara speaks this out. Well, why is the animal's value dropping so much? Now, it could be because it's being overworked. Now, if it's being overworked, I shouldn't have to pay. Again, the case is, my animal did $50 worth of damage, but by the time it comes to court, it's worth $150 less. So why did it keep on dropping precipitously? If it's because, one reason is because the owner just drove it into the ground. I should not have to pay for the owner being a bad owner. So the Gemara says, if the reason why it kept on dropping is because the owner is not treating it nicely and the owner is beating it and not feeding it, so I could say, you're treating it poorly and I don't have to pay for that. Why should I have to pay for that? I'll pay for what I did, not what you did. The answer is, the case is that original blow, meaning my animal gored it, which caused an original drop of $50, but that caused the animal to have a broken leg, and then the animal's not eating as much, and now the animal's weaker, and now it's dropping. But all of those drops can be attributed to my clap, to my hitting it. So because of that, we consider it sort of like a long attack, and therefore I have to pay for all of it. Because it's sort of like we say, your ox's horn is still dug in my animal, meaning it's still feeling the fallout from that attack. Okay. One sugya done. Let's keep going. We're doing great. Mishnah to Mishnah, and then we're fine. Mishnah to Mishnah, and then we're fine. Okay. Here's the deal. Let me explain outside, and then we'll see it inside. Rav Meir has a very classic way of reading how you pay for chatzi nezek. The Torah says you split the animal, meaning, very simple, you figure out the damage, I pay half. Fine. The problem is there's a pasuk. The pasuk says, let me read you the pasuk and you'll see Rav Yehuda's issue. The pasuk says, V'chiyigav shar ish es shari eyu v'meis. One animal killed the other animal. Umachre es ashar hachai. So you sell the damaging animal to pay. V'chatzu es kasboi. You split the amount. So far, so good. V'gam es ameis yachatzun. And you also split the victim's carcass. So here's the deal. If my animal's worth $200, and your animal was $200, and it kills it, and now it's worth $0. So, very simple, says Rav Meir, that's what the pasuk is referring to. I did $200 worth of damage, you get $100. So you sell my animal, and you get half of it. So far, so good. The problem is, then you're not splitting the carcass. Again, you're just splitting the damager. You're not splitting the damagee. The pasuk describes splitting of both. So you know what Rabbi Yehuda says the case of the pasuk is? Again, in that case, it's $100. I gave you $100. Very simple. Did $200 worth of damage? The carcass, the victim, is worth $0. I give you $100. Simple. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, that's not what the pasuk. Rabbi Yehuda says, that's true. That's a true halacha, but that's not what the pasuk is referring to. Because the pasuk refers to that there's a splitting of both the victim and the aggressor. So here's the case. $200 with a $200 animal. Gavin's animals are $200. My animal kills his animal. The carcass is worth $50. So how much damage did I do? I did $150 worth of damage. 200 to 50. I should split that. $75. I should just give you $75. No. The pasuk says you split the aggressor, $75. Then you take the carcass. The $50 carcass we sell, I get half of that. So 75 to you, I get 25. I give you now 25 for the carcass. I got to pay for it, so I give you $100. So it's the same $100. It's just that instead of me giving you 75, instead of just me paying for the damage of $75, I get 50% of the carcass, and then I pay you for that, and I pay you for the damage. So I give you $100. Does this sort of make sense? It's complicated, but basically, Rabbi Yehuda believes that that's what the pasuk is referring to, as opposed to saying the cases where the carcass is worth $0 and I did $200 worth of damage. I just give $100. The cases where the carcass is worth $50, I did $150 worth of damage, so I should just pay $75, and that's what a mayor says you do. You just pay $75. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Take the carcass of the animal, the victim, sell it, split it in half, sell it. 25-25. I give you now 75 for the damage, and I pay you for the carcass, 25, I give you $100. That's the point. Now the Gemara is going to ask a very obvious question, which is like, what's the difference? Meaning, I did $150 worth of damage. You have a $50 carcass, because my animal killed it. I could pay you $75, or you could split the carcass with me. So instead of $50 carcass, you have a $25 carcass. I have $25, and then I pay you for the victim, for the damage, and for the carcass. I give you $100. What's the difference? At the end of the day, I'm paying $75 for the damage. Is it nafka mina whether I'm also buying a half a carcass from you? So basically, in other words, Rabbi Yehuda looks at it as you pay for that half the damage, and you buy half the carcass. What's the difference in practicality, considering the fact that at the end of the day, you're going to walk away with the same amount of money. It'll just be a different form of it. But you could be walking with the same amount of money. Let's see it inside. The Mishnah says Rameir, what's the classic case of Chatzi Nezek? Shar Shava Masayim. Shenogach Shar Shava Masayim. You have a $200 animal that killed another $200 animal. Ve'ein hanaveli afaklum. And the carcass of the victim is worth $0. So I did a complete $200 damage, and there's nothing to sort of salvage. Rav Meir says, Al zen nemar umachres ashara chai v'chotzes kasbei. For that you pay Chatzi Nezek. Very simple. Rav Yehuda says v'chein halacha. Rav Yehuda says what you're saying is actually correct. That is a true halacha. You would pay half the damage, which is $100. But says Rav Yehuda, but that's not what the pasuk is referring to, because kayemes umachres ashara chai, because you fulfilled half the pasuk of paying for half of the damage, but chatzos kasboi v'loy kiyamta gamas hamesi chatzun. But the pasuk ends off that you split the carcass. Over here, you're not splitting the carcass. Therefore, I think the pasuk is referring to a separate case. What is the pasuk referring to? Ve'ezazeh zeshar shava masayim. Says Rabbi Yehuda, I think the case is as follows: the animal is worth 200. Shenogach shar shava masayim, that killed another animal worth 200. But the carcass is worth $50. So I did $150 worth of damage. So you'll say, okay, pay $75, pay half of that. No. What you do is you first sell the carcass, half the carcass to me. That's $25. So now I pay $75 for the damage, plus $25 for half the carcass, and I give you $100. He says, so I give you 75 and then 25 for half the carcass. You get 75 and you keep half the carcass. That's the case. So instead of it being $100 worth of damage, it's 75 and then 25 for the carcass. That's what Rabbi Yehuda believes is what the pasuk is referring to. Now, again, we're going to have to ask in a moment, what is the practical difference? Says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanon. The Brisa just speaks to that again. You have a $200 animal that killed another $200 animal, and the carcass is worth $50. He did $150 worth of damage. Rabbi Yehuda says, instead of me giving $75 worth of damage, which is half the damage, I actually have to buy half the carcass for $25. Then I give you $100. $75 for damage, $25 for the carcass. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir says, why am I doing this? Just, if you did $150 worth of damage, and give $75. Why do I have to buy half the carcass? Just give $75. Easy. Says Rabbi Meir, Ain't sharam b'Torah. That's not what the Torah is telling you to do. The case of the pasuk is very simple. You have a $200 animal that killed another $200 animal. The animal's now worth $0. Give him half the damage. And what does the pasuk mean that you split the carcass? What it means is that the victim, will lose half the value of his animal. You don't actually have to buy a carcass. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so here's the question. According to Rabbi Meir, it's very simple. Animal did $150 worth of damage. You just pay half of it, $75. Very simple. It's very clean. Rabbi Meir, it's a very clean transaction. Pay half of it. Rabbi Yehuda says, here's what you do. You pay half of it. Okay. Then you buy half the carcass for $25. So he gets $100. He's like, yeah, but it's $75 for the damage, and then you buy half the carcass. So it's the same thing. You're walking away with the same amount of money. Right? At the end of the day, you're walking away with the same amount of money.
Carcass goes up in that.
So the Gemara says, Michti, bein Rav Meir, bein Rav Yehuda, hai meya ve'esim v'chamisha shekel. Hai meya ve'esim v'chamisha shekel. My benayu. What is the difference? Again, you have these, one case, two different halachas. $200 animal kills another $200 animal, and now the value of the carcass is $50. So Gavin's carcass is now worth, Anil's carcass is worth $50. Rav Meir says, pay for half the damage. That's $75. I give you $75 cash. You walk away with the transaction with a $50 carcass and $75 cash. What is that valued at? $125. In the split up of $50 carcass, $75 cash. Rav Meir is like, nah. Rav Yehuda is like, no, I don't like that. Here's what you do. Give $75 cash. Then sell half the carcass to the damager, and he'll pay you $25. So you walk away, instead of $125, you walk away with $125, but $25 carcass and $100 cash. Okay? It's the same exact amount. You're just walking away with a different split up. According to Rav Meir, the carcass is not counted, so you just pay $75. So you have your $50 carcass, not part of the cheshbon. You get your $75 cash, $125. According to Rav Yehuda, you sell the carcass, half the carcass to me, so you only get half the carcass. So you get $25 with carcass, and then I pay you $100, $75 for the damage, $25 for the carcass, $125. Exact same thing. What's the difference? Says the Gemara, Amarava, your point. Pchas nevela ikabenai. What if the value of the carcass drops? Meaning, my animal, $200 animal, kills your $200 animal, and the animal is worth, at the time of the attack, the carcass is worth $50. So again, according to our mayor, $75. Boom. According to Rav Yehuda, split the carcass and then give the damage. Same amount of money. What if by the time we get to court, the carcass is no longer $50, it's $25? So now, according to Rav Meir, you'll still give $75 because the carcass was never on the table. But according to Rav Yehuda, you got to split the carcass. So now, I have to give you, I get $12.50, and then I give you another 70, and then I give you, so you make 200 minus 25, so it's 175, half of that, and then half the carcass. Meaning, according to Rav Yehuda, the amount of money you're paying is going to go up. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, it doesn't just stop by the carcass. You actually have to sell half the carcass, and then you give the amount that it was worth to $200. That's the why it's important according to Rabbi Yehuda.
Oh my God, seriously.
Okay, so according to Rav Meir, if the animal is worth $200, and you kill the animal, and the carcass is worth $50, according to Rav Meir, you just pay half the value of the not the carcass. The carcass is out. It's $150 damage. Boom, $75. Done. End of discussion. But according to Rav Yehuda, the carcass is still in play, which means you have a $200, you did $150 worth of damage, you split the carcass, but let's say the carcass instead of $50 went down to $10. So now I buy half the carcass, $5, and now I have to make up, it was a $10 carcass? I did $190 worth of damage. Meaning, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the value of the damage keeps going as the carcass goes down because the transaction is not done yet. That's the point. That's the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda. Now, here's the issue.
It's the same,
Exactly.
You get the same
Would it be
value, but
complicated
what's made
by
up of cow and
10%?
what's
But-
made up of money.
Only if the value stays the same. But once the carcass starts dropping,
Then you need to give more money.
I need to give more money. Exactly. That's the point. Meaning, Gavin's made it he simplified it very nicely. According to Rav Meir, it's just the damage. But according to Rav Yehuda, you have to make sure that all $200 are taken care of. It's just partial carcass, partial cash. Price of carcass drops, more cash. Now, here's the issue with this. Think about this. This is a little bit of a riddle. It's not a riddle, but this is a rare case where you're going to be paying more as a tam than as a muad. Because think about it. Muad, we don't care about the carcass, right? Muad means you pay 100%. But let's say my animal is a muad. $200 animal, kills your animal, carcass is worth $50. How much do I owe you? 150. What if the carcass keeps dropping? Doesn't matter. But tam, carcass keeps dropping. I now have to give more cash. Now, that's crazy. You're telling me that that's a case where tam is going to be more strict in payment than a muad. Yeah, but my point is, keep going. Instead of a $200 Tesla, I killed you understand? You can have a case where I killed a $100,000 cow. The carcass is worth $50K. So if it's a muad, I'm paying $50K. If it's a tam, it's $25,000. But then the carcass keeps dropping. By the time I go to court, it's worth $0. So now I'm paying a lot more than you understand what I'm saying? Even if the amounts don't equal up being the same, I'm being more strict in the payment of a tam than I am in a muad. That's very strange. Because a muad, we don't care about the carcass. The carcass is irrelevant. You go by the value of the damage. But now you're telling me by a tam, we keep the value of the carcass in play. And if the carcass value drops, I got to give more cash. So that means that we're more strict with the tam than a muad. That's not sensical.
Cash will never be more.
I understand that, but the payment process, we're being tougher with a tam than with a muad. That doesn't make any sense. Like a muad, I don't care that the nevela drops. That's on you. But a tam, you got to reimburse him. It's like the whole point of a tam is chatzi nezek. So the Gemara says, Amr le Abaya im kain matzin lo Rav Yehuda. Wait. According to now this, go to the next page. According to Rav Yehuda, tam chomer memuad. This is a case where a tam is more severe than a muad. Again, not in result, but in ideology. Meaning, you understand, in the process, a tam is more severe. Because a muad, you just pay for the damage. You don't worry about the carcass. But by a tam, I got to now worry about the depreciation of the carcass, according to Rav Yehuda, and I got to give more cash as the day goes on, which a muad I wouldn't have to do. A muad is set. That's ridiculous. And the Gemara says, we don't find this. And now we're going to prove that Rav Yehuda does not believe that a tam could be that you could be stricter with a tam than a muad. We don't believe in that. Now, there is one case where we actually are stricter with a tam than a muad, and that is the level of guarding necessary. But that's not for now. The Gemara says, "V'chite machanami," and maybe you'll say, well, Rabbi Yehuda is comfortable with us being tougher with a tam than a muad. Not true. Now, where do we find such a precedent that we are tough with a tam more than a muad regarding the level of shmira? But it's not for now. Kitzitanan, Rav Yehuda Omer tam chai v'muad potter. There is a case where I was shomer a regular shmira and the animal broke out. If it was a muad, I'm potter, but if it's a tam, I'm chayiv. That is a case where a tam is stricter. But says the Gemara, no good. That's only true regarding levels of guarding, level of shmira. But when it comes to payment, we never have a scenario where I am tougher with a tam for payment than muad. So back to the question. We said that Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda disagree as to how to split up the payment methods. And we said, what's the difference? At the end of the day, they're both getting the same amount of money. You're both walking away with $125 cash. Rav Meir, it's pure for the damage. Rav Yehuda, it's half damage, half carcass. So we said, what's the difference? So we said, well, the difference is, if the value of the carcass drops, Rav Meir, you're going to have to add cash. The problem is, no way Rav Yehuda would say that. The Gemara says, V'atanya, Rav Yehuda says not like that. Rav Yehuda says like this. Yochel shar shavamana shenogach shar shavamana Chamechamesh Sloim, Vaneve Yofa Sela. Rav Yehuda proves that we're never going to be tougher with a tam or more outlandish with a tam. He says like this. We're saying right now with a tam, there's like a concept that you actually not only get half the damages, potentially get half of the aggressor, right? Split it. Split the carcass, which is the victim, and split the chai, split the aggressor. Now, what that generally means is you just pay half of the damage. But if you actually look at the literal pasuk, that means you take all the things involved and split it. Here's the problem. Rav Yehuda says, let's say you have the following case. You have an ox with 100 zuz, $100. Okay? It gores an ox worth $20, and the value of the ox after the damage is $4. So it did $16 worth of damage. The $100 ox did $16 worth of damage. So how much should the aggressor pay? Half of 16, which is 8. If you split it, do you know what happens? The victim gets half of that, gets half of a $100 ox, which is $50. So instead of $8, it gets $58. Does that make sense? Meaning, if you look at the literal pasuk, this is Rabbi Yehuda talking. If you look at the literal pasuk, the pasuk says, instead of saying, the pasuk never says, give me half damages. It says, split the victim, split the aggressor. So says Rabbi Yehuda, that does not mean literal, split it. Why? Here's the deal. If a Buick Century from 2003 with $2,500 destroys a Buick Century from 2003 with $2,500, so you know what you do? Let's say the carcass of the victim is worth $0. So what you do is you split them both. Meaning you take my car with $2,500, I pay half damages, which is $1,250, split in half, $1,250. But let's say a Tesla worth $100,000 destroys a 2003 Buick Century, doing $2,500 worth of damage. Says Rabbi Yehuda, if you actually go by that formula, instead of giving me half damages, you split the aggressor. You know what I get? I get $50K. Does that make sense? No. Says Rabbi Yehuda, then Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda says, that can't be. Why can't that be? Again, a $100,000 Tesla destroyed a $2,500 Buick Century. So what should the Tesla pay? Half of the $2,500. But the pasuk says, split the living animal, meaning split the aggressor. So it says, if you actually go by the literal pasuk, that would mean that I take a $100,000 Tesla and we split it. And then we also split the damages. So I'll walk away with 51,250. You'll walk away with 51,250. Great. Does that make sense? Says Rabbi Yehuda, heck no. You want to know why? My Tesla did $2,500 worth of damages. If my Tesla was a muad, how much would it pay? $2,500. And if it's a tam, how much am I paying? $51,250. Does that make sense to you? Absolutely not. We do not treat a muad less severe than a tam. So says Rabbi Yehuda, is a muad supposed to be stricter or less strict? What do you see from this? You see from this point, besides for the point that Rabbi Yehuda is making, which is that you don't just literally split the baby all the time, you see that a muad always has to be more severe. So go back to our discussion. Our question was, what is the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, whether you split the payment or you split the carcass and split the payment? So we said, if the depreciation of the carcass, you'll have to give more money. That means that a tam will have to pay at a value, at a rate that is higher than a muad. No way. No way. And Rav Yehuda doesn't believe in that. No way. Because of this proof. You see from this brisa, Rav Yehuda is not a believer of that methodology. So says the Gemara, okay, good point. Good point. Change it. Elam Rav Yochanan, shvach nevela ikabenayu. Mar savar denizakave umar savar palga. Okay, very simple. $200 animal, killed another $200 animal, carcass is worth $50. According to Rav Yehuda, Meir, stop right there, I give $75. According to Rav Yehuda, what if by the time I go to court, the value of the carcass went up to $100? I don't have to pay $75, I pay $50. That's the point. Meaning, according to Rav Yehuda, because you split the carcass, if the value of the carcass went up, I can then less money, more carcass money, less damage money. Okay. So I give you...
One way.
Huh?
Only one way.
Correct. Meaning, so we sell the carcass, you get half of that. The carcass value went up just by God. That's just market value. I lucked out. So this is a case where I pay, again, it's like Gavin said he said it very beautifully. I make sure to make up the $200 both in carcass and money. So we thought if the carcass drops, you give more money. No way, because that's not fair. The answer is, okay, if the carcass goes up, less money. Okay. Here's what I think I'm going to do. Because it is 8:28, I'm going to get to the Mishnah, and then we'll stop. Because I don't think I can get past the Mishnah today. So the Gemara says, okay, so far so good. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, we're actually lenient with the Tam, that if the value of the carcass went up, you don't have to give as much money, you can give less damage money. Oh, perfect. By the way, that's the conclusion. That's Rabbi Yehuda Shita. And now it makes sense. Behind the Kakash of Rabbi Yehuda. Now that we know this statement that Rabbi Yehuda, again, Rabbi Yehuda is not a believer that a Tam should ever be treated worse than a Mu'ud. But now we're saying a Tam is actually treated way better than a Mu'ud. It's actually consistent. Because he's saying that I don't have to pay as much money if the value of the carcass goes up. I could sell that carcass, you'll keep that money, and I give you less damage money. Right? Conceptually. Now that we know that, the following conversation makes perfect sense. Behind the Kakashale, the Rabbi Yehuda, now that we know that Rabbi Yehuda was actually chill and being maskim, that the carcass going up makes it better for the Tam, now we understand the following conversation Rabbi Yehuda once had. Rabbi Yehuda said the following thought. Rabbi Yehuda said, now that we know that the Torah, again, I'm going to plug in this information that we have. Now that we know that the Torah is not only lenient with a Tam, the Torah is actually very lenient with a damager. Because if you think about it, again, my animal $200 kills your animal $200. It's worth $50. I should have to pay $75 worth of damage. Yeah.
Killing your animal as a carcass pays more.
No. I'm saying my animal killed your animal. The value of the carcass is $50, but I did $150 worth of damage. According to our mayor, I give $75. No, animal to animal. It's not kosher. Animal to animal. So Rameir, I pay $75. Rav Yehuda says, no, we do half damage but half carcass. By the time I go to court, the value of your carcass is no longer $50, it's $100. So here's what we do. You get $50 from the carcass, and then instead of paying $75, I pay $25 from the extra money you just made from the carcass, plus $50. I only give you $50. So we're actually more lenient with the mazik. So says Rav Yehuda, now we make a lot of sense. Rav Yehuda said, now that I know that we're lenient with the mazik, how far you want to go with this? Yachol shar shava chamesh sloim. Shenagach shar shava maneh vanaveli yava chamishim zuz. Let's say you have an animal worth $20 that gores an animal worth $100, and the carcass is worth $50. Okay, so instead of a Tesla destroying a Buick Century, let's go the opposite. A Buick Century destroys a Tesla. Okay, so the $2,500 car destroys a $100,000 car. Now the value after the damages of the victim is $50,000. So it says Rav Yehuda, well, the pasuk says split it, right? Splitting the carcass always helps, but now splitting the carcass, you know what that means? I started with a $2,500 car, and after the car accident, I get half of a $50,000 car. So that's pretty sweet. So I walk away. So says Rav Yehuda, did we actually do that? And where's his question coming from? His question is coming from the following thought. Now that you're telling me that when the price of the carcass goes up, we're lenient with the mazik, how far you want to go with this? Meaning, you understand, Rabbi Yehuda had a question, and that is, the pasuk says split both. You split the carcass of the victim, and you split the aggressor. Well, what if the carcass of the victim is worth 10 times the aggressor? And how could that be? My car, worth $2,500, bangs into a Tesla. It was worth $100,000. After the attack, it's worth $50,000. You know what? I'd take that split. I'd still take that split because I start off with a $2,500 car and I get half of a $50,000 carcass. So says Rav Yehuda, do we actually do that? Says the Gemara, Amrit, no. Heichon matzinu mazik nischar. Where do we find that the damager should make money? I'm making money on this car accident.
Stop driving around.
Yeah, I'm just going. Because this point is, if you just split the aggressor and the victim, so yes, sometimes it works out, but like sometimes the aggressor can make a lot of money because if he hits like more valuable cars. V'oid, another proof that we don't have it that I get half the Tesla. Shalim yishalim, I pay. Bailam yishalim ve'bailam naitim. I pay. I don't make money. So first of all, where do we find that an aggressor will make money? And second of all, the pasuk says pay and don't take. So says the Gemara, why do I need a second source. It's both saying the same thing. I'll tell you what. What if the following case? I have an ox worth $20 that gores an ox worth $20, and the carcass goes up in value. Meaning, the reason why the issue, again, the Gemara wanted to know, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if you're splitting everything, then I can make money, right? $2,500 car bangs your Tesla worth $100,000. Your Tesla after the attack is worth $50,000. If you split it, that means I get $25K. So it says Rabbi Yehuda, no good. Why? Two reasons. First of all, we don't find that the mazik should be making money off an attack. And second of all, the pasuk says no good. So why do I need both? The answer is because the first svara alone of where do we find the mazik making money, maybe that's only true. Maybe we're against it like hashkafically making the mazik make money if the victim is losing. What if they're both making money? Meaning, what if the value of Buick Centuries after attacks skyrockets to 100K? So you're making money on it also. We're both making money. Yay. Kamashmala, no. The pasuk says, V'oimer shalim yishalim. Meaning, the reason why you need both is because one is to tell you hashkafically we're against it, but then the Gemara says, but what if there's a scenario where both the victim and the aggressor are making money? Because the price, I made money because the Tesla's way more valuable than my Buick at the time of the attack, and then you're making money because my Buick is worth way more money by the time of Bezdin than your Tesla. In which case, you split them both. We started with $102,500 values between the two cars. After the attack, you could be walking away with a $250,000 value if our price of both of them skyrocket. Kamashmala, no, you are not making money on this. Fine. But this entire concept only works with Rabbi Yehuda's thought process, which is, because if the carcass goes up, I have to give less money. So you see the Torah is helping the mazik. So you might think that the mazik should make money in the case of a Tesla. Kamashmala, no. Now, just to end this discussion,
The pasuk's capping it.
Correct. The pasuk is capping it.
Stop it.
Correct. Now the Gemara just says, Amar li Rav Acha bar Tachli for the Rabbi, just to end this discussion. Im kein matzin lo Rabbi Yehuda tam mishalem yosem mechatzi nezek. The Gemara says, I understand that the tam is not going to make double the amount, but isn't the tam going to be making more than 50%, according to Rabbi Yehuda? If the price of the carcass, if you split the price of the carcass as well, then isn't the victim going to sometimes make more than 50%? Because if the price of the carcass keeps on going up, and I then pay the half of the damages plus that, are you not going to make more money? The Gemara says, let's say, I'll just give you an example. Article gives an example. If an ox worth 50 zuz, gored an ox worth 40 zuz, and the carcass is worth 20 zuz. So I did 20 zuz worth of damage. So I should have to pay half of that, which is 10. Okay? If the parties divide the live ox and the dead one, each party will receive 35 zuz. Meaning, according to Rav Yehuda, the Gemara is just having an overall question. Rav Meir is very simple. You take the damage, split it in half. So Rav Yehuda says, no, you don't. You split half the damage, but half the carcass, and if the carcass goes up, then I have to give less. But aren't there going to be scenarios where the values, again, Tesla and Buick Century, where you're making more than half? Again, if the value of, if you're splitting both the living animal and the dead animal, if my Buick Century, if my Tesla hits your Buick Century, you get half my animal. Aren't you going to make a lot more? You're going to make more than 50%. So I understand you can't make 100%, but aren't you going to be make more than 50? The pasuk says 50. You should get 50. You're going to make more than 50% of your damages. By definition, if all the values equal up, then you'll make 50%. But if my Tesla worth $50,000 breaks your Buick Century worth $2,500, I should pay $1,200 worth of damage. But if you're telling me now that you also get half my Tesla, you'll be making $25,125. So we said before there's a pasuk that says that we're not into that. But the Gemara says, but that was only like, say, if it's making 100%. What if it's making 75% more? Meaning, in other words, in this scenario, do you also split it as well? So the Gemara says no. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda, Pchas shepascha misa machzin b'chai. In such a scenario, you go with Rav Meir's calculation. Meaning, Rav Meir's calculation of you take the damage and you split it in half, that's what we do in this scenario. In the scenario where the values of the victim and the aggressors are so off that if you were to split both, the victim would be making more than 50%, you go with Rav Meir's calculation. You don't split the carcasses, you don't do that. You just do 50% of the damages. Meaning, if we can make it work, we'll make it work. If it's not going to work, we stop it. We go to Rav Meir. So sort of throw most of the things that we've been talking about. The Gemara says, Minole, how do I know this? Because the pasuk says split the dead one, which means you should get 50%. I thought you're supposed to get half of the carcass, and even if that's more, the Gam tells you that both, which is that there are scenarios where you're going to split the carcass and split the living animal, and there are going to be times where you don't. When do you not? If splitting the animals, if the values are so off that splitting the carcass and the animal makes it that the victim is making more than 50%, we are not going to do it. The only time Rav Yehuda will do it is if the values are equal enough that the carcass can make it that the victim doesn't have to pay as much. Meaning, in other words, just to end with this, 30 seconds. Rav Yehuda is only comfortable with splitting the carcass if it helps the aggressor. Meaning, instead of $75 worth of damage, the value of the carcass went up $25. Fine, I'll pay 50, you'll keep half the carcass. But if the values are so off that it's a Tesla and a Buick Century, where splitting both means you're making 10 times X, we're not doing that. Even if it means you're making 75, we're not doing that. That he agrees with Rav Meir. It's a much more limited machlokes in scope. All right, we'll stop here.
Answers by a futures contract.
Yeah.